Hey kids, welcome to class. So on our main channel, Crispy's Tavern, we discussed a person by the name of Jeremy. Jeremy has been obsessing for years over Critical Role's problem player, Orion Akaba. Jeremy wants Orion back onto the show and has made a very extensive video series ranting about why Matt Mercer must bring this man back to Critical Role. We made a commentary video covering his rants and had a good time with it. However, Jeremy has not ceased. He has continued to make these videos, and in a recent one, he actually talked about something that kind of interested me from the perspective of D&D advice. You see, a lot of people have been speculating in my comments about Jeremy being a problem player, and even people who claim to know him in real life say that he very much is a problem player. And many have gone on to speculate that the reason he's interested in the redemption of this famed problem player is because he himself, Jeremy, wants redemption. And I kind of chalked that narrative up to the what is true dimension, the realm of speculation and nonsense, until Jeremy made a few more videos basically saying exactly that with his whole chest.
I am Orion. I've done what he's been accused of. But he's been accused of some terrible things. When I look at Orion, I see a man just like me, a flawed, lying cheater.
I did not expect that. And Jeremy talks extensively about how he thinks he deserves a second chance. You have to involve problem players in your game. You have to give them a shot at redemption, another chance, because if you don't, you are dooming them to a death of despair. They're all going to die away and contribute to the sickness at the core of America that's hurting men across the country. And okay, yeah, maybe that part was a little bit unhinged, but the whole thing about inviting problem players back into your game, that's interesting. We talk about problem players all the time on Crispy's Tavern and Crispy's Academy. And the question is, when do you invite them back? I mean, not every issue is kick-worthy, right? And people can always earn a shot at redemption. So I want to talk about that. Should you invite your problem player back? Or should you leave them behind the dust? Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, let's start out with why you should invite a problem player back, and there's really only one criteria I really care about here, and that is you and the problem player in question, or if the problem is big enough, you, the problem player, and perhaps the whole group as well, you have talked about the situation, and you have resolved it for all parties. That's it. Now, that might seem like a really big ask. Like, do we have to have a 2-hour debate about these issues? Well, no, not really. This is an example I used before, apologies if you've heard it, but during my second full homebrew campaign, my characters were all pirates in the party, and one of the pirates, a little kobold sorcerer, he discovered that one of their crewmates was actually a secret traitor, and he proposed an execution method that was fairly brutal for the tone of the campaign. It was nothing rated R, it fit perfectly in a PG-13 film, basically just tying an anchor to her feet and drowning her, that's it. But it was kind of out of pocket for the other players in the party. I may not have batted an eye at it, but it was clear that some people felt a little bit weirded out. So I just decided to shoot him a text message like, hey man, that was kind of weird, what was up with that? And he simply responded with, yeah, sorry, I got caught up in the moment, and I felt kind of cringy immediately as those words exited my mouth. And for me, I totally understood. As a girly who can get pretty brutal with my kills in D&D, I completely understand someone accidentally getting carried away. His response was perfectly okay with me and the rest of the party, and so we continued the campaign. Now, there are a few important things to note. Number one, the sorcerer player in question is a friend of mine who I have known for over a decade by that point, as are almost everyone at my table. We have been friends for a long time, been playing D&D together for years. So obviously, problem resolution is going to come a little bit easier to us as we are familiar with each other. Another thing to note, this is not a super big problem. It was a momentary bit of cringe. However, it's important for you to resolve even those small issues. Look, this wasn't that huge of a deal. I just sent him a text message. He responded with a text message. I gave him a thumbs up. And that was it. But if I hadn't done that, I know my anxiety. I would have continued to think about that moment, spiraling into oblivion, blowing it up in my head. The more you leave your problems unresolved, the more they are going to be difficult to resolve in the future, which is why you need to try and jump on these things. Now, like I said earlier, this was a small moment. Think about for the big stuff. If you notice somebody at the table is making other players actively uncomfortable constantly throughout sessions, through flirting or maybe fantasy racism, if somebody's min-maxing character is really overshadowing the rest of the party who are all brand new and feel like they barely get to play the game, if you have a spotlight hog that's taking up all the roleplay time, these are much bigger issues. And if you don't resolve them quick, they are going to blow up in your face later on down the line. Now, I also want to clarify, these are not issues that I think you can just resolve over text. Like, maybe some of them, but with the majority of them, I would prefer a discussion. However, I do think DMs are still a really powerful tool for initiating discussion. You see, when you're just texting someone, it leaves you very much able to edit your words, figure out exactly what you want to say, and then send it over. You can't really do that when you're having a conversation, can you? You can figure out your pitch, you can figure out how exactly you want to broach the situation to your problem player, and then send it. And after that, have a discussion. If I'm trying to have a discussion over a major issue at the table, I always start with a text message. Obviously, this is just me. You might have a completely different communication style. However, I always encourage you to have these talks and to prepare yourself. One other thing I like about texting someone, hey, can we talk about this issue in a few hours or maybe tomorrow or whatever, that allows me to prepare myself a little bit. I'm not saying you have to rehearse a whole script, but you should at the very least figure out, what you want to say. Look, if your problem player does not understand the issue's not going to be solved, dude. So, you need to at least figure out how you are going to communicate the issue to them. Just figuring out that phrasing is a huge reason why this discussion will either work or not work. I find people try to rush their way into resolving issues, not just in Dungeons & Dragons, but just in life. They're going in while emotions are still hot, blood is still boiling, and they try to just fix everything now, right now. But that, honestly, usually just makes the problem worse. Give yourself time to prep, but also time to cool down. If your emotions are running hot, nothing is going to get solved. Okay, so let's wrap this all up in a bow. If it's a small issue that I don't think is that big of a deal, I'll send a text about it and call it a day. If it continues to crop up, then I move on to the bigger deal category where I text them, say, hey, I want to have discussion, prep myself a little bit, let blood cool, let myself get a little level-headed, and then go into the discussion. If that discussion is to my satisfaction, I feel like the situation is resolved and I no longer feel any resentment toward this person and I don't feel they have any resentment towards me, I will continue the game as is. No need to kick anyone out. Look, I think this is what you need to do if you have a problem player at the table. If the issue is unresolved, it will go bad. Please listen to me when I say that. I've seen it happen countless times, both through our extensive RPG horror series and in my own real life. So now, the important part for me, when shouldn't you invite a problem player back? I mean, it's honestly a pretty simple answer. If the above didn't happen, then you should not invite the problem player back to the table. If you cannot find a resolution to whatever problem you, your party, whatever you're having, then that's it. Look, I know a lot of people think time heals all wounds. But does it? Does it really? Because in my experience, it just builds the resentment. I thought about this fallacy myself when I was considering inviting a player who wasn't necessarily a horrible problem, but was definitely not compatible with my game, and not compatible with me on like a person-to-person level, which, by the way, does absolutely matter for Dungeons & Dragons. But one tired night, I realized, hey, it's been 3 years. They must have changed. I invited them back without really considering the ramifications. And then, through the campaign, I realized, oh my god, that was a bad idea. Because of course it was. We did nothing to resolve the issues that I had with this person over the past few years. We had some minor discussions, yeah, but nothing to resolve my core problems. And that led to my own resentment building. If anything, I was kind of becoming a problem DM. I don't think I treated the guy any differently during the game. He always said that he enjoyed it, but I felt bitter after the sessions, and that is, again, a lack of maturity on my part. Not because I was still angry at this guy. I think I had some valid reasons that I was annoyed. However, it was my problem that I decided to bring him back without trying to resolve the issues. Time alone will not heal your wounds. A discussion should be had. And frankly, if this person is the kind of person where you are afraid to have that discussion, where you fear for your friendship or your game, or worst of all, your safety, if that is something you are afraid of, that's the sign you shouldn't have this person in the game. You should always be comfortable discussing these kind of things with your players. It's not like you're having some horrible, I don't know, birds and the bees conversation. I don't know what makes people uncomfortable. Look, it's not like you're having some horrible convo. It's just talking about a problem at a tabletop role-playing game. At the core of it, that should not be that big of a deal. It's still a discussion. It's still going to have its difficulties, but it shouldn't be world-ending for your friendship. If it is, that's just further proof that this person shouldn't be in the game. A big reason why I didn't have this discussion with this person and just let time separate us is because I was not comfortable having this discussion with this person. When I tried to have such discussions with this person, I was often revoked. I was often not taken seriously. And that made me not want to have any more conversations about their issues or my issues in the future. That was the final red flag that should have indicated I shouldn't invite this person back, even if they really enjoy my games. Look, the truth is, also, on top of that, it might not even just be a them thing. You know, there are absolutely problem players who are not receptive to discussion, but there are also problems that you might not be able to solve with discussion. I mean, look at how many creepy incels and straight-up stalkers we've seen on horror stories. I, myself, have experienced adjacent behavior from people at my games. Look, I'm sorry, but that's not something I'm really willing to discuss. If you're creeping on one of my players, you've got to go. That's not the only problem that would merit such a response. Blatant racism, somebody who has a disdain for another player due to out-of-game reasons. Those issues are often not going to be solved with discussion. I'm saying you can try. You can try. But there are absolutely things where I am going to put my foot down and say, no, stop, we are done. I'm not saying that you should treat every issue at your table like that. There are absolutely times where you should have discussion. In fact, most times you should have discussion. Most problem player behaviors can be solved with a chat. But you should set healthy boundaries around things that do not merit such a second chance. And those problems, like I said, they are your responsibility to cut off early, especially if they hurt the other people at your table. Okay, so we've talked extensively why you shouldn't invite problem players back. But there's one other thing that Jeremy mentioned that really irked me: the DM responsibility. So Jeremy talked pretty extensively on that Orion Akaba series about Matt Mercer and the cast, their responsibility to Orion. They have to save him. Because to Jeremy, apparently Orion is this destitute man who's doomed to die behind a dumpster. And no, I'm not speaking metaphorically. He actually said that.
And Matthew Mercer is like, hey, today is my day to do nothing for Orion. I wonder if today is the day he will find his dumpster and freeze to death in the dumpster.
Obviously, this is ridiculous for a couple reasons. Just number one reason, Orion Akaba is a fairly prominent voice actor who is not destitute by any means. But look, the point is, Jeremy and many others use mental health as a weapon. And I'm here to tell you, the mental health of your problem players is not your sole responsibility. The only person whose mental health is your responsibility is yours. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't try to take care of people, okay? You should. But it should never come at the cost of you or your fellow folks at the table. It really bothered me when Jeremy acted as if it is the DM's responsibility to save problem players, to protect their mental health. He uses a lot of that mental health language, and the use of that language, in my mind, is very, very manipulative and something that I'm seeing more and more often. It's something that was used on me when my problem player wizard came back into my DMs. You can read all about that in the cards. But yeah, when that guy came back into my DMs to try and guilt me, he used a lot of mental health language I'm sure he knew would affect me given my own struggles with mental health. Look, it's a good thing to care about your friends, to care about the people at your D&D table. But as a dungeon master, you gotta care about yourself too. You gotta care about the people who are affected by your problem player. And if they're not willing to resolve the issue, then at a baseline, they're not doing what's required to stay at your table. You have boundaries and they are not meeting them. And that is not on you, that's on them. If their mental health is so supported by this D&D game, it should be easy for them to make a compromise or to have a discussion. But if they're not willing to do that, like I said before, it is on them, not on you. Don't let problem players or Jeremy put that responsibility on your shoulders. Woof, another mental health episode on Dungeons & Dragons. With the same lighting as I normally use too. Pink and red is really common, I guess. But if you guys enjoyed, you might enjoy that video I did on Jeremy. It's linked up in the cards. But before you go, please do subscribe to Crispy's Academy and leave a like on this one if you enjoyed it. And if you want to leave your own tips or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. It's not on you to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell. Many speculate, because of that, many have gone on to speculate that the reason he's so obsessed with Orion and Kava and Tiberius Stormwind is because if